Well, hello, welcome. I'm glad that you're with us as we continue our chronological read through of the Bible. The word of the Lord continues to come to Ezekiel. Comes to Ezekiel speaking of God's judgment and his wrath on Jerusalem. Remember that Jerusalem's been slow, well, actually totally unwilling to acknowledge God's judgment, preferring instead to listen to false prophets who tell her that, well, everything is fine, that God will never allow the holy city or its people to be destroyed. So once again, God makes it clear that his people are not holy, in other words, set aside and dedicated to him, nor are they even faithful to him, but rather they're like a faithless bride, one who goes whoring after those things that they desire, rather than loving him who has taken her as his own. Chapter 16 is actually a rather long allegorical satire where Ezekiel equates idolatry with adultery. Jerusalem has taken on other gods, the gods of the nations around her, when she was a firstborn. Still, God nourished her. Then, when she became old enough to marry, as part of this allegory, God spread the corner of his garment over her. You might think back to the story of Ruth and Boaz. He adorned her with fine jewelry and fine clothes. He fed her with rich foods, and yet still she wandered, trusting the gifts rather than the giver of those gifts. God accuses her of acting like a prostitute, only worse because she doesn't even receive any payment. And she solicits others rather than being solicited by them. God will turn her many lovers, in other words, those other nations and gods, against her, and they will destroy her. And yet, in all of that, God will still preserve a remnant for himself because of his abiding covenant. In chapter 17, the word of the Lord tells a parable of two eagles and a vine. The first eagle is Nebuchadnezzar. He was God's chosen instrument to discipline Judah, but she was still to be fertile and blessed by God, even while she was undergoing this discipline. But a second eagle tempted Judah to rebel, promising assistance. That second eagle would have been Egypt. The question asked was, will he thrive after his rebellion? In other words, Judah rebelled, is Judah still going to thrive? And that's answered in that section where God declares his anger against Judah for despising their oath. Those who thought they would bring freedom, those whom Judah thought would bring freedom, really only deliver death. And rather than the gentle hand of discipline, Babylon becomes a crushing arm of defeat. And yet again, in verses 22 to 24, we read that God will plant a sprig that will grow into a mighty cedar, a messianic prophecy that even in the face of this great destruction, God will not forget his covenant with Israel. Once again, we're assured that God will always preserve a remnant, and from that remnant, he will fulfill his promise of a Messiah. As always, I pray that our time together is helpful, that you're learning, that you're growing, and that some of this guiding, I guess I would say, as we're working our way through these readings, helps you to understand what's going on. May God be with you, bless you. Look forward to gathering with you again the next time.